lovely lot. I hope you're doing well. As always, thank you very much for tuning into this podcast and in particular into this special episode. And this episode is special because I am being interviewed for my own podcast by fellow psychic medium and friend Glenda-Marie, who's based all the way over in Australia. And Glenda actually came up with this idea to interview me in order for people to get to know me a little bit better, get to know a bit more about my background on both a personal and professional level. And she's taken questions which some of you sent in to me, and she also came up with a list of questions herself. So hopefully you'll find the answers I give interesting. And with that said, we could have been talking for hours and hours and hours. So actually we did have quite a long conversation. So I've decided to split this interview into two parts. Otherwise you'll be there for hours listening to me just waffle on. We could have been there for hours and hours talking about many different topics. We could have gone off on many different tangents. So maybe there will be a second interview to come, who knows. But in order for those interviews to happen, we do need your input, as some of you have already done. As I say, some of the questions have come from you listeners, which I very much appreciate. Hopefully you will find it interesting in whatever level that is, whether it be on a personal level or professional level, what have you. But either way, I hope you enjoy it. So this is part one of the interview. Part two will follow very shortly. But yeah, enjoy it, and I'll see you on the other side.
Hello everyone, I'm Glenda-Marie, psychic medium, and tonight or today or in the morning, I don't know where you are in the world, I'm actually interviewing David. David does all the interviews with everyone else, but today he's in the hot seat. So we have a few questions from David's followers that they've been put forward to us. So we'll be asking some questions where we're going to get down to the personal, the nitty gritty, down and dirty. I don't know how dirty we'll go, but today is about getting David to be a little bit more vulnerable and seeing where this little journey takes us both with the questions that come out. So how do you feel about that, David?
No, I feel all right. It's not that I like to talk about myself, but I think sometimes, like when I wrote the book, it was just about getting stuff off my chest in that book, really. But also, I guess it's for people to get to know me a little bit better, I suppose, or in a more personal sense. 'Cause I don't share everything on social media. I don't share necessarily my life with people. So hopefully this interview might answer some questions, I guess, or just give a little bit more of an insight into me as a person, so people can then understand why I operate the way I do and why my thoughts are certain ways as well. So yeah, bring it on.
Great.
Bring it on.
Yeah, bring it on. And a lot of you have been following David for quite a while, and I've had the privilege of working with him in person and online, and he's a fantastic medium. Like, we have a lot of similar things where we just give it how we get it, and we don't overinterpret things, and I think that's where we find the balance with the both of us. So question one,
Okay.
David, here we go. What sparked your interest in becoming a psychic medium?
It was out of fascination more than anything. And it was just one of those things that it was something that interested me naturally, I think, because I grew up Catholic, and so it wasn't around me at a young age because I had to go to church and go to Holy Communion and confession and all this business. But then it got to a point when I was 13 where my mum said to me, look, you're old enough now to go and explore what you want to explore and what you're actually interested in, what you believe in. So I did. I never went to church, but I never went back to church ever again. And I'm not exaggerating, that's a true story. It was 13. That was the last time I went. It was Christmas Eve. And that's it. I didn't want to go to church for Christmas Eve service and stayed at home and never went back. And then it was around that time that I started finding those old school mediums out. Before we had YouTube or anything like that, without showing my age. But it's when we had a TV program on cable called Living TV, and we had shows like The Three Mediums and Most Haunted and all those people. And that's where I discovered people like Psychic Sally Morgan, Tony Stockwell, Derek Cora, Colin Fry. And I don't know why I watched it, and John Edward as well. That's another one crossing over. And I don't know why, but it fascinated me. I was never scared by it. I just thought, oh, look what these people can do. And by that point, at that age, I hadn't really lost anyone in my family that I was aware of, really. And so it wasn't because I wanted to connect to someone on the other side, so to speak. It was more, oh, that's quite fascinating. And then for whatever reason, I just got drawn into it. I don't know why. And I started going to psychic fairs as a teenager, things like that. And they would all say to me, oh, you've got an ability, you should work on it. And I was like, oh, thanks. Because I didn't know. I had no idea that I could do it at all. And that's how I really got into it. It was just the fascination of it. And yeah, just enjoying watching them work and being amazed by what they came out with and understand. And I knew even then that they weren't fake, they weren't frauds, right? I had no evidence or anything logical to back that up. I just knew that what they were doing was real in my soul. So otherwise, I'm very much black and white, where if I don't think it's real, it's not real, kind of thing. But I felt that it was. So yeah, and that's it really. That's what kind of sparked the interest. Is just, I don't know, I was just drawn to it, I suppose. Like people are drawn to football, or they're drawn to this, that, and the other. I was kind of just drawn to it, really. That's how it kind of started.
Tell me, did you start playing with tarot cards or oracle cards? Was that the way that you kind of stepped into it slowly? Because I know a lot of mediums did, or you just straight into mediumship?
The funny thing was that when I was 18, I was working in a shop called Index. So many people of you in the UK who are old enough to remember Index was the catalogue shop. It was Argos's rival. So I worked for Index, and I was working with a girl called Lisa, and we still talk today. And it was Lisa that went with me to the psychic fairs because she believed in it as well. And she'd recognized something in me because she bought me for my I'm sure it was my 18th birthday. She bought me a pack of Rider-Waite tarot cards and said to me, get practicing. But the funny thing is, I never did. I put them in the box in my wardrobe and left it there. And then many years later, when I first started the mediumship development, I looked in that box and those cards were still there, wrapped in the cellophane, almost waiting for me to go, right, now's the time. So from 18 to 35, no, 34, when I first started developing officially, I'd kept those tarot cards. I hadn't binned them. They were still sat there. And so I thought, okay, there's a little sign there that I didn't get rid of them. I've kept them, so they're there for a reason. So yeah, so that was that little story. But yeah, I kind of, when I first started developing, it was my intention wasn't really to talk to dead people, for lack of a better phrase. It was more just to open up to, I guess, do more psychic work, and that's how it started. But then very, very quickly, it shifted to mediumship. Not consciously, I was just kind of pulled that way because I found a spiritualist church, and that's kind of how my journey then properly started. But it started with opening up the third eye and meditating and focusing more on the psychic stuff. I might have played about with the tarot cards, but didn't do readings with them or anything like that. So that's how it kind of started. But yeah, again, it shifted naturally to mediumship very quickly.
So, how long did you attend spiritual churches before you actually stepped out as a professional medium?
About 6 years.
Okay.
Well, 6 years for the platform, but I've been doing private readings well before that. But yeah, I didn't step out really onto the platform for, I think, 6 years after the start of my development.
And when you first started, we all, for new mediums that are developing and that, we can get in our heads. Was that a thought? Was that spirit?
Yeah.
How did you find at the beginning did you differentiate your thoughts to spirit messages? How did you, how long did it take that process for you to trust what you were getting to your normal thoughts?
Till now. um, what I look, yeah, at the beginning, it's a very true point that we do start to think we are going mad, or we're making it up, or yeah, I can't be doing this because I'm not a medium, and I must just be making it up because that's far too random, and all that stuff does go on in your head. I think it's a process of um, experience, or a mix of experience and trusting and just learning along the way. And I think it's being patient with it, because I think, especially with myself, I speak for myself as well. When I first started, I was like a bull in a china shop. I wanted to go full pelt, hell for leather. I need to do it. I need to do it now. I need to know everything now. I need to sort it all out in my head now. And that's just not really the reality. So my advice to anybody to start with is to let it unfold as it's meant to unfold, and don't wind yourself up with I must know everything now, because that's not the case. And I still don't know everything now. I think every medium will say, or any good medium will say, that we don't stop learning. We don't suddenly know everything at one go. We still need to be open to that. But to come back to the question, what I will say is, when it comes to differentiating between my thoughts and spirit thoughts, is firstly is how random that thought is looking at that scenario and what scenario you are in, which is why I always say to people, keep a journal, keep a diary of your learnings, because you can then look back at it and go, where was I when that thought popped into my head? What was I doing? So that's one thing. The other thing is, with my process, the way I work with spirit is, this is going to sound a bit mad to people, but when spirit communicate with me, they use how do I put it that so it doesn't sound too confusing? So let's rewind that a little bit. So when I communicate with spirit, the females communicate with me on the right side of my brain, and the males communicate with me on the left side of my brain. So when I have a female stepping forward, I can almost see them in my head, or hear them in my head, to the right side of me. But when a male comes in, they're to the left side of me. So when I get a random thought drop in my head, if it's sat in the center of my mind, for me, that's just my thought. But if I pick up that piece of information either to the right side or the left side of my head, I know it's coming from spirit. So it sounds like, if you can understand what I'm saying there. So that's another way I differentiate. And the last thing I'll say to people is, when no, what I'm trying to say, because I've got background. Can you hear any background noise your end? Echoing. Oh, I can listen. That's why it's put me off. So when you are differentiating between your thought and spirit, remember this: that your thought, your imagination, put that word on it. There's a storyline behind it, and with your own thought, there isn't. So what I mean is, if you get a red pair of shoes put in your head, for example, and your mind then says, right, those red pair of shoes, they will fit really nicely with that dress that I've got. Oh, and that nice red dress and those shoes will go well together because I've got a party to go to on Saturday night. And so your mind starts trailing off a storyline. That is your imagination. That's not spirit. I tend to find that spirit communication, it just comes out of nowhere. It's just you've not had a thought about this person or this issue, this thing, but it's just dropped into your head. But there's no storyline to back it up. It's just that image. So, for example, I was at work once. When I was working in pharmacy, I was counting prescriptions, and so my mind was focused there. But out of nowhere, I got a flash of my nan's face in my head, and then she went. And I know in that moment, that's just my nan just saying, yeah, I'm here with you. And then she went. But there was no storyline behind it. There was no thing, oh, Nan did this and Nan was like that. And so there was none of that. It was just a flash of her face and she went. But there was no storyline to follow that through. So I would say that's the difference between how to differentiate between your own thought, your own imagination, and a natural spirit thought.
And that's exactly right. It's very similar how I kind of work. The other thing is with when you work psychically, do you also believe it's that first thing that is dropped in your mind, and that is
Yeah,
spirit?
absolutely. And that's what we say when we're trained in spiritualist churches. There's a saying which goes, the first thought is spirit, the second thought is yours. So as soon as you start trying to overinterpret or judge that first bit of information, your own logical mind is then taken over, and then it doesn't become psychic, it becomes your mind then, and you've just talked your way out of that good piece of evidence. As mad as it might be, as random as it might be, we need to remember that now whatever spirit put on our head is not, we're not meant to understand, unless it's for us, of course, but if it's someone else, we're not meant to understand it, we're meant just to receive it and pass it on.
Right, exactly right. David, I want you to cast your mind back to young David.
Oh dear.
Young, innocent David,
Yes.
when there was no spiritual church, there was no talking to dead people, there was David being free, young, and did you notice back then any synchronicities, signs, spirit trying to get your attention back then? If you can cast your mind to maybe a day or something where you go, well, actually, that happened. That was very strange.
Parts of it, yes. I always remember that as a kid, even going into my teens, even going to my adulthood, I would always have that thing of hearing my name being called out. So I would hear David being shut, and I'd turn around to see who was saying it, and there'd either be nobody there, or there'd be nobody. There would be people there, but they're like at school, for example. They're there getting on with their work. They're writing down in their workbooks, and I'm here. I heard my name, and I'm sure that I heard my name being called out. But again, it's one of those situations you would go, do you know, I'm hearing things, and you get back into what you're doing. So that's one thing. I used to always get deja vu, and I got it so much at one point where one of my friends who is epileptic would say to me, "Oh, you better go to doctors and get that seen to because that's a sign of epilepsy." I'm like, okay. um, didn't listen to her, but I'm not epileptic, so you know, to me, it's still just deja vu. And what else? I used to I used to draw a lot of faces, and actually, this only came back to me a while ago where I found some, my mum found some old workbooks of mine from school, from early school time. And actually, people would say to me as well, I just draw randomly, just draw a lot of faces in my workbooks, and I don't know why. Um, yeah, just and I've looked through them, and it's just faces of people that they're not very good because I was very young, but they're just pen drawings of just random faces that I'll draw. I don't know why. But I'd also would see faces in my head. I remember sitting in, I think it was English literature class, which bored the arse off me. And I remember sat at the back, and I was next to the window, and I would zone out because I was just a bit bored. And I remember seeing faces in my head, but again, I just thought it was me just being imaginative or just daydreaming, and so I never ever put two and two together with any of it. It was just more, I must be going mad, or I'm just distracted, or whatever else. But yeah, but I never remember seeing spirit. I don't have one of those stories where, you know, I woke up 4 o'clock in the morning and saw my dead relative at the end of my bed or at the top of my stairs, or all those other stories that you hear. None of that at all. It was more what I just explained to you, which I couldn't put a reason to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the other thing around that, what I'm trying to get to is I know that you have done stage work prior to being a medium. You can draw and you can paint, and now you've talked about the drawings and the faces. And as you're journey develops and your mediumship expands, don't you think that's a bit synchronistic that you were already prepared by working on stage, you're painting and you can draw, and here you are going on with your journey as a platform medium. You are now offering drawing spirit art. So I always think that there's something there. There must have been something planted there, and it's kind of like David has to follow the little breadcrumbs, and look where David is now.
Yeah, I've never put the two and two together, so I suppose that no, you're right. Um, I do believe that life is the um, greatest lesson for mediumship is the experience of life. But yeah, I've never put those things together actually. That's a good point. Maybe it is. It was just a way of getting me prepared at some point to do the work. Yeah, no, I'd probably agree with that.
Now, I will give you a one of the viewer questions. This one is from Karen White, Kazza White. We all know Kazza.
Karen?
Karen, have you ever felt stuck, stagnant with your mediumship? If so, what would you suggest for a medium going through this on their journey?
Yes, I have. And even up to recently, I've gone through some of that as well. You know, even up to last year, I felt very stuck, very stagnant. Um, I'm very honest and say I don't know if there is a magic formula that I could give for that because I think the reason we get a little bit stuck or stagnant is because of self. I don't necessarily think it's because of anybody else or any other external things there. I think it's more the self pressure, the self confidence or lack of, the trust. Because we all go through that in this journey, and I've been through it multiple times. And what I've kind of come to realize is that when it comes to mediumship development, there is no going backwards. There is no stepping back. It's always moving forward. But we feel like we're going backwards when we are stuck because we feel like we should always be going forward. But actually, when we feel like we're stuck or stagnant, I believe it's just at that time for us to stop and think about and reflect on, okay, where am I now? What have I gone through? What have I learned? Because I think with mediumship, because of what it is, we continuously want to help people more and more and more and more. And because we want to do that, we keep like we're on this hamster wheel where we keep going forward, 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 forward. We don't ever go backwards. I never see a hamster running backwards, do you? But no, they keep going forward, and we don't take time to get off that wheel and to look back and go, okay, let's assimilate. Let's see what I have learned. Let's reflect on that demonstration or that one. And that's why I always say to people is to keep that journal. I said it already, but keep the journal. Make notes of certain demonstrations that you've done. Make notes of demonstrations where you've had a smashing demonstration, you've smashed it. So you can look at those things and go, do you know what? I can do it because I've done it. So I think it's about not being too hard on yourself, not giving yourself too much of a rough ride. It's about being kind to yourself and going, do you know what? Maybe this is making me stand still. Maybe this is making me rest to regain my energy, to think about what it is that I have learned so I can then expand that learning as I move on. So yeah, that's it. There's no magic pill for it, but it's working through it and sometimes giving yourself that talking to as well, which I do quite often. But I think that's the only way to do it because it's not like someone has said to me, oh, you're shit or you can't do it. It's in my head. I'm going, how do I make this better? How do I change things up? How do I keep things fresh for me? And I do think as well, when things become too repetitive, just like in life in general, we can get bored with it. If it's too repetitive and you've done it over and over and over again, you then go, well, do I want to keep doing it over and over and over again, or do I want to change things up? And that's when you've got to look at your mediumship and go, okay, how can I change it? What can I throw in? What extra evidence can I work on to try and get, just to keep it fresh for yourselves as well?
And I've got two questions here. How do you maintain your emotional and mental well-being in your line of work? This coincides with Cindy Woodside's question. I'd like to know what you do in your free time, David, after your art, teachings, mediumship, etc. Like who are you? What do you enjoy doing? Do you go camping? Do you go walking? Do you walk by rivers? Let's elaborate a little bit on how David does his downtime.
Yeah, it's a nice question. Hello to Cindy, because I know Cindy also listens to the podcast. She leaves me comments and reviews, which I very much appreciate. So hello, Cindy. I know she's based in Canada. Um, so let's start with the first part of the question, which how do I maintain my health, my emotional well-being,
Mental health.
Yeah. I think the major thing is for me that I am very aware of where I place my energy and who with. And I think you have to be very conscious of that and making sure that I make time for not just myself, but for my partner as well. Because my partner also works very hard. Sometimes there'll be weeks where we only see each other lying down. Because half the time, when he goes to work in the morning, I'm in bed. When he comes back, or I'm in bed, or whatever. So it's very much being conscious of that. And it kind of links to what people have asked me before, is how do I avoid negative situations or negative people, or no, do I? And the answer is yes, I do avoid them because I don't attract them, because I don't get involved in drama. I can't be asked with drama. I mean, drama sometimes is there. Sometimes you can't always avoid it, but it's a conscious thought and it's a conscious decision to step away from any person who doesn't bring anything positive into my life. I don't deal with situations or go into situations which I don't feel is going to add anything positive to my life. And so I just don't get involved in it whatsoever. And so that's how I avoid that. And that's also how I look after my own mental health. And look, don't get me wrong. There are times where I do feel very down and feel a bit depressed, and that comes from earlier parts of my life. So I'm not saying that I am full of beans all the time, or life is a box of roses, or whatever else. I do go through those darker moments, but it's just being aware of my thoughts, where I place certain things, my energy, and where it's valid and where it's needed, really.
Just want to jump in there as a male, because males I find hold back on emotional things. Males don't talk about things. David, do you often open up with friends, or do you talk to your partner when you're feeling down? Like, how are you with that sort of self, looking after self-care and your mental health? Do you open up to someone when you get down in those days?
Not really. I mean, my partner will know, because he'll know if I'm in a bad mood, if I'm feeling a bit shit. Because I'll tell, no, not to be horrible to him, but I'm honest with him. And I'll say, look, I'm feeling a bit blur today. Or he'll say the same thing to me. He's open with me, and he'll say, I feel a bit depressed today, whatever else, without going into his business there. But so yeah, him. My mum also, she'll always know if I'm on the phone to her having our weekly catch up. She'll always know that I'm feeling a bit not all right or whatever. But otherwise, I don't, because not that I internalize a lot of things, but I'm just very aware of what I put on to other people. So I'm very aware that if I am feeling, I do not want to put my feelings of depression on another person. I don't want other people to suddenly, because we know like how energy works, and like attracts like, and if you're in the energy of someone who is completely down or depressed or whatever, that can leak into your auric field. So I guess I don't know if it's a pride thing or just a private thing. So I can be quite a private person. Is that I don't necessarily want everyone to know that when I'm going through darker periods or whatever else. I'd rather process it myself, and I will come out of it. It's just at that moment, I think if you are depressed, people know if you have depression or whatever else that you don't necessarily want to talk to people anyway. It's not us being horrible. It's just, I guess, it's just that. However, depression works. It's just those levels in you that don't want to engage with other people. Quite frankly, but you push through it. So yeah, I get through it my own way. I mean, look, this is not saying that I am depressed right now. It's just past depression I have had. That's how it's been. I didn't want to talk to people. Is other people would notice a difference in me because I was not myself, whatever myself is, and people would notice that. But yeah, I've got a very small circle of friends. I don't have a load of friends at this point in my life.
And so when you need to take a step back and you need some space for yourself, and a lot of us do, especially with this work, because we're taking on a lot of emotions, we're taking on grief, we're dealing with people's lives and, the readings that we do. How does David shift that energy? What do you do for yourself for that self-care? Do you go for a walk, or I know you go to the gym, you enjoy the gym?
Yeah, so kind of linking what Cindy said there. What do I do? So yeah, I do enjoy the gym, and not a lot of people like exercise or going to the gym. It's a bit pain in the ass for certain people, which I get. But no, I go to gym 5 days a week, minimum 4, really. So that's my space to feel good about myself, to feel fitter, to feel healthier. So that's a big part of my life as well. What else do I do? I like
Your
my music.
paintings? Do you like your paintings?
Yeah, paint. I do. Obviously, I do it as a job as well. The other part of my life there. But I will paint sometimes. I'll just do some practice paintings just because I don't know. I just enjoy it. I enjoy the flow, the creativity, the colours. So I'll do that as well. But I tend just to practice the painting so I can teach them at the next event. But I do like doing the paintings. I'll sometimes sit and just draw random faces, like doing a bit of spirit portrait work, just with charcoal or those kind of pencils. Just sit and draw a face for no particular reason. But again, it zones me out. I'm learning Polish at the moment as well. But languages have always been something I've been interested in. I tend to pick them up quite quickly. I couldn't say the same thing for Polish, but but I'm trying to learn Polish, and purely because my other half is Polish. So I try to learn some of that as well. What else do I do? I'm very interested in ancestry and genealogy. So I've been doing my family tree since 2008. And I looked at it recently again. I'm just one of these people. I like to know where I come from. Why have I got certain traits that I have, or why have I not got certain traits that I wish I had? And I find it fascinating where our ancestors came from, what they did as jobs, what they went through during their lifetimes and those different centuries and decades that are there. So I've got a big old folder with loads of documents and census records and all that business. So I find that fascinating. That thing about people, and especially when it's your family, fascinating, and putting some of those Chinese whispers to bed as well, because you always hear down through the family, oh, this person lived here, or they did this, and you find out actually they didn't. So where that story comes from, I've got no idea. But yes, I'm interested in that as well. And now I was a bit of a dancer at one point as well, so I enjoyed doing that.
So do you still hit the clubs and dance?
No, I've done that. No, I think that boat has firmly sailed. But no, I was a street dancer in my teenage years. So we used to go around. Actually performed at a theatre in Stevenage in the UK. For any of you that are down that way, did a showcase there. We used to go around shopping centres or the shopping malls, and there was a space where our crew would get together. We'd all do street dance routines there as well. I still like a bust a move now and again in the privacy of my bedroom. Do some of the old moves and things like that. Yeah. So yeah, there you go.
And you were a very good gymnast. I don't think many people knew just how good you were.
Yeah. So I started gymnastics when I was 10, and it's quite a short-lived career. But yeah, I started when I was 10, and it turned out very quickly that I was quite talented in that field. And so it went from just doing gymnastics training to being a competitive gymnast. And so my first competition I ever did was on Mother's Day. And I can't remember what year that was. But anyhow, yeah, so it was a Mother's Day. My mum and my stepdad came to watch me. I think it was in Peterborough. I think that's where the first competition I ever did was. And it was, I did the floor and I did the horse or the vault, whatever you want to call it. And I won gold on the floor and silver on
Wow.
the horse, my very first competition. So obviously made my mum cry on Mother's Day. And then by the age of 14, I was national champion with my pair. I then transitioned to sports acrobatics, which is it's gymnastics, but you work with a partner or partners. And I worked with a girl called Rebecca, and we won national championships. So we've got a trophy as well as the medals as well. So I've still got my medals. I've got about 17 medals, I think, from the competitions that I did.
Wow.
So yeah, and
That's
I get
amazing, David. Well, I think all the viewers would love to see you bust a move and do a bit of a backflip for us, hey?
do you know, I wish I could. I wish I could. I can nearly get back down into the splits at my old age. Um,
Wow.
but yeah, but back in those days, there was no camera phones or anything like that. So there's nothing recorded anywhere. Not at least not that I'm aware of anyway. That I've got a few paper cuttings when I was in the newspaper. But yeah, there's no recordings. There's none of me on YouTube. I'm afraid people seeing my skinny legs and
Oh,
whatever else.
damn.
The leotards.
Oh, I could just picture you in that leotard with all your glitter, and I can just see
Tiny.
it, this leopard skin one, and
Actually, I did have a leotard which had the leopard print on it. Now thinking about it, yeah,
oh, I could just see it with your little headband, and
I won't go that far.
so you dress like that, bouncing up on stage. Oh,
Yeah,
give anything, hey? I'm sure they'd pay £10 for that.
I'm sure they would. I wouldn't.
So that question leads into Elizabeth Davies would like to know, how have your relationship with friends and family changed since you've begun your mediumship development? How much do you feel you have to edit yourself when you're around people, and who apart from the spiritualist community, like, do you have to change your persona to fit in with people? Have you had to be a different person, or are you just yourself? Do people accept you for who you are?
Yeah, I don't edit myself at all. They either like or they don't, quite frankly. So, basically, yeah, I'm not. Look, I think with age comes confidence, and I think that you have to get to a point in your life where you go, do you know, I can't care what everyone wants to think about me. You know, life is very short, as we know, and I am myself. I'm not a teenager or a 20-something-year-old that tries to mold themselves or fit into a certain group of people. I haven't got time for that. And so, no. So, how my relationships have changed, if anything, people have become more open with me. So it's been a positive experience. And it's not until I announced many years ago that I was developing as a medium that I suddenly found out that my auntie, for example, who lives in Australia, she'd gone to see Doris Stokes do a demonstration in London. I had no idea. And that she's also believed in spirit. My mum, although we grew up Catholic, my mum's always been very open, that she feels that there is something on the other side. She's not just closed off. And then I had cousins then come to me saying, "Oh, this has happened. What's this about? Is this correct, or am I making?" So people have become, my family have become a lot more open about it, if anything. So it's been a positive experience for me. I know it's not the same for everybody, but yeah, luckily for me, not everyone, but the majority of people, yeah, they're fascinated by it. They speak to me about certain things, ask me questions, and so yeah, for me, it's been relatively positive. If people are not interested in it, they don't tend necessarily to talk to me about it. So if they are skeptical, they don't tell me. And I'm lucky that no one in my family or friendship circle has ever really been disrespectful to me or made me feel like I'm going mad or whatever else. There've been certain quips that have been made, but I know they're said in jest. They're not said in any malicious thing behind it. So yeah, but no, apart from that, I mean, I don't talk about what I do unless people bring it up. because I don't put it in people's faces. It's like any religion, that I don't sit around a table talking about God or whatever else. Like I don't sit around a table talking about spirit. If people ask me, then I will have a conversation, but I don't talk about it unless it's really asked of me, really. So yeah, I don't change myself. I don't edit myself at all. I say people, if they either like it or they don't, but it doesn't change me or change my thought process.
So, how have you handled skeptics or critics of your work?
It's changed over the years. I think when I first started, I'd be the first one to call these guys out on social media. So when I first started doing a lot of Facebook Lives, which is a scary thing. When you first start doing this work, you first start setting up your business page and going live, it is a scary thing. And I've managed somehow to eradicate most of the trolls. But at the beginning, I started getting a lot on, and I did take it personally. I took it to heart, and I would tell them publicly to F off and whatever else. But now, but I mean, trolls and skeptics are slightly different things anyway. I think trolls are just those people that sit faceless behind a screen, want to get a reaction, basically. Where skeptics are not always, they're not bad people necessarily. They are people who question of the degrees to these people. Some people are respectfully skeptical and they have a conversation. We have the skeptics, which go to the more cynical point of view, which I can't tolerate. So I don't even talk to them. But it's okay to be skeptical. It's okay to question things. I think in life in general, not just with mediumship, but in life in general, it's okay to question things and to wonder, is that real? Why are they doing that? Or whatever the other questions might be. But to be honest, I don't really get engaged in conversations with skeptics, to be honest. But I don't know if I just don't attract that type of people, or I'm not that well known that they would come to me for those kind of things. I have people who are interested, who even people who I work with at in my art job, that they tell me they're fascinated by it. So I have a conversation with them, and it's nice, just for them to be a bit open to it and to listen to what I've got to say without any judgment. So I'm quite lucky in that sense. But I try not to pay too much attention to skeptics, honestly, because a lot of the things that they say are backed up on an emotion, not backed up anything. They're based on an emotional response to something they don't understand. So they'll say, I had someone the other day, actually, I did a TikTok video the other day, and I asked for questions for this interview, and someone, again, faceless, had a cartoon picture of something. I don't even know what it was, not even their face, a few followers. He said, I have a question for you. What evidence or proof do you have that you talk to dead people? But before you answer, I'll tell you, you have none. And I thought, I'm not going to engage it. This person doesn't deserve my airtime, so I just blocked it, and that was it. But I don't need to do a video on it responding to his comment, because I can't be bothered. So that's just his opinion based on nothing. Because that's what it's based on. This person has never done any research into mediumship. They've never had a reading, whatever else. So you really can't pay attention to them, because their answer is always based on ignorance or a stupid, immature answer. And you think, come on, I don't need to engage in that, because my level of intelligence is probably higher than yours. So I don't even need to go into that conversation with you. So yeah, but still, I'm not adverse to telling anyone to fuck off. If they disrespect me, I will. But I don't tend to get into arguments unless I absolutely have to. But yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I would happily say to someone, do you know what? If you don't believe it, and you want to be disrespectful to me, the door's
Jog on.
You can fuck off and walk through the door, basically.
Yeah.
But touch words, I've not had to have a lot of those conversations, so I'm quite lucky in that sense.
So if I were to flip it the other way, how would you navigate, or have you had to navigate, relationships with clients who have become attached or dependent on your guidance? A lot of mediums will get repeat clients that come for readings, but then there's some people that continually want to hear from their loved ones. How have you navigated that?
I've got to, again, completely honest here and say I've never really had that, because what I found is I mean, I've got some fabulous followers, some very loyal followers, people who have come to me for repeat bookings, but not in the sense of I need. I've never really had that, to be honest. And you have the odd a person that you can pick out, and you know they want to hear from that certain person all the time. And I get it, especially if you've lost a child and you're finding it hard to cope, no matter how long it's been since your child has passed. I understand why you want to hear from them, but yeah, I really, aside from that, I've a lot of people that come to me, hopefully by the reading that I give them, they find the value in it. They don't need to come back in such a short space of time. So I think my followers have an understanding of that, and I know sometimes they might come back, 6 months at a time, or some of them might come back 2 years at a time, which is perfectly fine with me. But I think I'm also honest where I have turned people away because I didn't feel that it was right for them to have a reading. And I might be putting myself out of business here, but it's, me, I'm very passionate about ethics and the morals and the values that come with mediumship and the responsibility that we have. And there are mediums out there who will take, and who will read someone every 2 months or every week even, because they're happy to take the cash. But then I look at, you've got to question that and go, well, what are their readings doing for that person? What value are those readings having? Whereas for me, if someone comes to me and they say, my husband passed last week, do you think it's too short for the time's too short for reading? I said, oh no, I've said yes it is, and I personally wouldn't do it for you because I feel you need to process it first and then you can come back to me later. But I have turned people away because, again, it's not all about the money. I could, if I wanted, happily say, yep, I'll take your cash and I'll do your reading, but it doesn't sit right with me, and so I have turned people away in those cases. But again, having said that, I don't have people inboxing me. I don't. I've got to be honest and say that. But yeah.
And have you always been welcomed with open arms in every spiritual church that you have demonstrated?
I've got to say, I've never had any negative or bad experiences, I would say, so far. Luckily, touch all the wood I could find. I've always had a nice welcome, a nice reception. No one's ever been disrespectful to me or whatever else. So I've got to say, in that case, I've been quite lucky there, I guess. I don't know if it happens to other people, but I've always felt welcome in the churches that I've been to. Well, there you have it. That's part 1 of the interview. I hope you found it interesting. And part 2 will follow very soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But in the meantime, thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.